This is exactly how I hoped he'd be looking this evening. Slightly dejected, but still on it.
Hey Will, how you doing?
All right. This is Jeff Conway, Mr. Pushingnormal. As I said, he does a load of designs for me and my bands and a few of my friends as well. And he's looking a bit peaky tonight, though, I must say.
Well, you know, it's been a long week, but no, absolutely, absolutely delighted to be here and
Cool.
talk about what I've been working on. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent. So what have you been
you might have to read out any questions that come out up. You may have to read them out to me because I've got no eyeballs.
Okay,
So,
I'll do that. Yeah. But you managed to point at your eyeballs then, so you probably, I don't know how you did that. How did you do that? I'm really.
It's magic.
Okay. So
Years of watching the Muppets. You learn a lot.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's like the freakiest Muppet show I've ever seen. But, okay, so yeah. Well, I guess we should start at the beginning. I mean, what made you want to originally start designing for bands, really? And was that the original intention of what you wanted to do? You know, I mean, or was there something...
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, right from the word go, I had a bit of a detour where I wasn't designing for bands, but no, even when I was at art school, which is a phrase you don't hear anymore. When I was at art school, I was doing graphic design, and like everybody was at college, I was in a band, and I was doing things for that band. I mean, you know, if you're a teenager or at college and you're not in a band, get in a band. That's my one advice for life. Anyway, so I was in this band, and I was probably spending as much time working on graphics and flyers for the band as I was for, as I was on the music. And I was studying graphic design, and then I moved on to doing what used to be called time-based media. So I didn't call myself an animator back then. I knew that I wanted to do unusual things with video that wasn't just filming people. And I loved music videos, of course, because, you know, I was really getting into my music experience was getting wider and wider. So, yeah, I mean, when I was at college, I mean, that was it. When I grew up, I wanted to make music videos and design things for bands. It just seemed, you know, I grew up with Factory Records and, you know, 23 Envelope and all those fantastic design houses.
Was there any particular label or any particular designer that was involved with the music business that really sparked off? You know what?
Well, I mean, you know, Factory Records and all the, you know, I mean, most of the stuff from the 80s, anything that's got a die cut in it, like, you know, orchestral movies in the dark, you know, is going to be from the same design house, and it just has that look, that wonderful look, and it was just that whole thing about a record having lots of slots and kind of cuts and unusual things, and it being an object beyond just the music on it, that just added so much on it. It gave you something to do while you were listening to the record.
Yeah,
you know, because back then you listening to records wasn't a background thing, and you know, having this new toy, literally new toy to work with, was you know, a really key thing, a big thing of me. And I remember talking to people at college, even when I was like, you know, just starting, that, you know, I wanted to be you know, it didn't say design house, but, you know, I wanted to be someone that people came to for everything, the complete package, not just the artwork, you know, not just videos. I wanted to do all of it, because to me, a band's brand is as important. You know, it is such a bolster to their sound. It's such an important thing, because all the bands that I liked had amazing images, and even if they were not like images where they were up front, you know, they still had a great graphical presence. So
it's like a big part of it can be just a design image, can't it? You know, I mean, if you look at New Order, they were never on any of their covers, were they? So
exactly, and that's you know, the Peter Saville stuff is just such a great benchmark for design.
Right.
So yeah, you know, right from the word go. I had a bit of a detour. I kind of got into doing other things. You know, when sort of the IT world took off, I kind of got a bit sidetracked by that. But I was always working on things in the background.
Right.
But now, you know, slowly over time, it's now Pushingnormal is just that's all I do. It's Pushingnormal is my job, is my, you know, my living, for better or for worse, you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, and it's obviously still developing, because you're doing a lot more videos now, aren't you, and stuff, and a lot more animation.
Well, I mean,
I guess
I mean, it's been an extraordinary year for a lot of reasons, and the beginning of the P word, the pandemic, it was very odd. I had a lot of stuff lined up, and it was like somebody thumped the table, and then all the projects, all the release dates, everything that was lined up, just all went up in the air.
Yeah.
And for about 2 months, nobody knew where it was going to land. You know, there was just kind of like, well, do we do stuff and then just wait and see, or do we just cancel this? And a lot of very big projects got cancelled altogether. And there was one kind of smaller project that I was really, really keen on doing, which was kind of like going to be a run of 5 videos, and that got cancelled. But although it wasn't like somebody took a decision, it got cancelled, it just kind of like limped on, and then just let's see, it just never happened. And stuff like that is a real shame.
Yeah.
But then I think a lot of people that I work with already, like yourself, you know, picked up on the fact that, well, most of the videos I make don't involve shoots. They're not conventional music videos. Like, people don't come to me for a kind of performance video. They come to me for even animated, or what I call motion graphics.
Yeah.
Something that often, and I've done this for major labels as well, when the artist isn't available, they come to me and say, well, what can you do? I mean, you know, the term lyric video is kind of like, you know, a bit of a cliche now, but, you know, I was doing lyric videos. Some of the first animated videos I did were lyric videos, and this was, you know, kind of 15 years ago.
Have you any idea why that came into sort of fashion, lyric videos?
What?
I don't quite understand what the sort of purpose is still, really. I know everyone does it, but yeah, so just wondering.
I think it tied in with like the early days of streaming. The people were releasing albums, and they were like, well, this is the single and this is the single, and then other tracks unexpectedly would take off, and artists were going, okay, well, labels were going, oh, well, we've got to do something for this, but we don't really consider this a single. And a lot of people were making their own lyric videos at that point, and you know, they were kind of badly cropped kind of photographs, low resolution, and, you know, Times New Roman over the top, and so the fan-driven stuff, which obviously is another really big thing about the early days of music and its relationship with the internet, really pushed the concept of a lyric video forward. And then record labels saying, well, okay, well, you know, the artist is busy touring, or the artist is busy promoting the actual single. Maybe we should do a lyric video for this other track and just see what happens. And very often, a lot of those early ones, you know, if they were like testers, they were cheap testers, fast turnaround, to see what would happen, you know. And also a way to break a new artist if they hadn't had a fully formed image, which is something else that I've done with lyric videos. You know, when the artist they're not quite ready to break them properly, they put out a lyric video, so it's a little bit anonymous, and you know, and away it goes. But I mean, I've done a lot of lyric videos. I mean, I hopefully haven't done two that are too similar. But I always joke about that I'm the go-to guy for lyric videos without any lyrics. I've done some very strange ones. There was one I did for Shit Robot, which is still one of my favorite videos. And it's a really long dance track, really dark, and called Where It's At. And the lyrics have been improvised. And no one could remember, because it was a bit of a session. No one could remember what the lyrics were. Yeah. So I said, well, somebody's got to transcribe, because it was all done with effects, like very robotic voice. Yeah. I said, well, because one of our rules is, you know, I need a transcription of the lyrics if you want a lyric video.
Right.
And they kind of said, we think it's this and we think it's that. And weirdly, there was like one word that I thought, that's not it. That's not what they're singing. And it was weirdly, I had in a previous life worked on a project where I was doing animation about blood cloning. Anyway, it's a long story. Yeah. But the technology was called recombinant technology, and I thought, hang on a minute. So this lyric, I'm sure that word is recombinant, and we tried it out, and it looked and it worked, because, you know, it's a very wordy, if slightly, you know,
you can't really
mumble.
rhyme that with anything, can you?
Right. So it's a very
yeah.
and there was long periods in the video where there's no vocal at all, and so doing a lyric video for that was a real challenge. But I really like the way the final video came out with that. It's a very, very slow video. It really draws you in.
All right,
And
I haven't seen that. I need to see that.
It's a while ago now. It was for I think it was for DFA Records in America.
Right.
And that was good because then they asked me to do a follow-up single with Shit Robot, and weirdly I ended up doing a cassette with them.
Right.
You know, slightly before cassettes like really took off again.
Oh, okay.
They wanted to do, because he was like kind of slightly retro kind of DJs into house music and stuff. We did like a cassette that had like one of those old school electro album style covers. So yeah, just really, it was just a great project. It's one of those ones that kind of grew and grew and ended up going from how the hell do you solve this to ended up doing 2 music videos and a cassette. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, excellent. Right. Yeah. So that's
that's kind of a potted history of the lyric video.
Yeah.
So I still get asked to do them.
No idea. I've never felt the urge to do it, and I always see people trying to sort of, they'll be talking or something on a video, and they'll get some software that puts the words on. It's always completely wrong, the spelling mistakes and all this. So, but obviously, you have to do it properly, don't you?
Well, one of the funny things about some of the lyric videos I've done, so I do a lot of kind of borderline urban stuff as well, and there's a whole debate about punctuation. About if somebody says like "watcha," do you type it as "watcha" or do you use slang? So it's kind of like in it and stuff. And it's kind of there's always some debate about that, and at the end of the day, you're kind of like, well, okay, this is what it means, and you have to make a decision on basically how it scans and how it looks on the screen. Because sometimes doing it like Queen's English in the middle of kind of an intense track, it just doesn't work. So you kind of have to go with, the slang term.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, Terry's saying, I think your artwork video would be ideal for Grace Jones. Yeah, I can see that.
I would absolutely love that, because another one, back, showing my age, the early Grace Jones videos was just on ZTT. I was a big fan of ZTT Records.
Yeah.
Another record label that had, fantastic concepts that they above and beyond the music.
That was
all the things that they were doing with Paul Morley.
They had like a complete branding of all the bands on the whole label, didn't they? It was just like I don't think anyone else had done that before, really. Had they? I guess maybe Factory and stuff a bit, but that was like, it was all the same kind of type and everything on all the Frankie Ocean and the propaganda stuff and all that, wasn't it?
Well, I kind of got into them through the Art of Noise, because I remember Beatbox was just suddenly out of nowhere, was just everywhere.
Yeah.
And I really loved that track, so I got into that, and of course that was the peak time for remixes. So you couldn't just get the 12-inch. There was some other mix, and then it would appear on some hip hop album as a backtrack, and so I ended up getting all different versions. And from that, I started just collecting the ZTT label and getting to bands like Propaganda, and it was just, I mean, everything about it, even though Propaganda stuff went a little bit kind of like graphically was a little bit loungecore, it was an 80s sophistication. But again, it was just that kind of like, it felt serious and it felt important, but it also had a humor to it.
Yeah.
ZTT are really good. Like I say, but it was through ZTT that I've sort of got into Grace Jones, but of course they also have brilliant cover versions as well. Just fantastic. I was going to mention this because I know you did the cover version thing on your radio show, and you had one Grace Jones on your cover versions one, and I was going to say, ask if you'd heard her Joy Division cover, which is fantastic. She's lost control. Yeah. It splits people down the middle, but I really, really like that track. It's on the B side of one of the singles of that album.
Basically,
I've got it on the 7-inch
cover she's done a lot. As normally, quite often I've heard her version first, and then when I hear the original, I'm like, I think I probably even heard "Love Is the Drug" by her before Roxy,
right?
And she just makes it her own, doesn't she?
that's probably true of Warm Leatherette as well, which is probably her.
Yeah, that's maybe the only one where, I mean, the original is so of itself, isn't it? It's so defined by the sounds on it that it's but she made it different enough, I guess. She had to.
Yeah, well, I think I heard her version before. I have both now.
Yeah.
But I think I heard her version first. But yeah, no, I would love it. That's a great call, Terry. But absolutely love to work with Grace Jones. She's very control of her image, but loves to experiment as well.
I can't remember what track I played now. I think it was Nightclubbing. Maybe I played. I think I played Nightclubbing.
Yeah, that's
Corporate Cannibal video. That's amazing. Yeah, I've seen that. That was on her last album.
Oh, I need to check that one. I'll look that up.
Yeah. Terry also says, is there any artists, Jeff, that you would love to make a video for or artwork for?
Oh, I had a feeling this might come up. It's a difficult one because if there's a band you want to work with, it's usually because they're already doing good things. So it's almost, I'd be tempted to pick a band who I don't think are doing it right, who I think I could improve their image, but then it would be rude to say their name, to say, well, actually, I think they could be doing better. But it's kind of a luxury. There are a few bands that have been and gone, like smaller up and coming bands that I wish I'd kind of worked with before they disappeared. Right. The people I knew. That's always a shame when you know people who are sort of doing stuff and you kind of think, oh, it'd be good to work with them. That's happened a few times, but it is what it is, and I'm too busy getting on with the next thing to worry about it.
So do you think if someone's in your opinion, from your viewpoint, if someone's gone completely down the wrong road with their look and their design with their releases, do you think that's salvageable? I mean, even if they've they might be top of the charts with that, but they might be coming across to you as completely what they shouldn't be, and I'm just wondering, is that salvageable? Can you turn a band around, once it's gone down completely the wrong route?
I think at the heart of it, when that's happened, it's usually the band where I've just thought, like, no, your music deserves better.
Yeah.
So if at the core of it, their music is good, you would like to think that they can overcome it. But I've also been in situations where, and again, I have to be careful what I say here, where, bands have kind of done something really high production, and then they've kind of followed it up with stuff that's not such a high kind of production level. And I always feel like it should keep going up, always going up. So that's, one of the things I like about working with She Maybe Do It. I mean, I thought, when I did the artwork for Frantic Legion, I thought, that's peak album. And since then, we've just gone, even though it's gone more minimalist in design, it's felt more and more kind of like new challenges, and more. It does feel like an evolution of the stuff I've done with you, and that's a fantastic thing when that happens.
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say.
Well, I was just going to say the.
No, go ahead.
You go.
You're the guest.
Okay. Well, I was just going to say that you can't. Repeat business is the best compliment. That when an artist comes back to you to do the next thing or the next thing after, then that's a great feeling. Because you feel, that's good. Repeat business is the key. Word of mouth, keep and repeat business.
No, we found our Anton Corbijn, definitely.
Yeah. Well, that's another great reference. Was that in a comment or?
No, that was in my comment that came out of my mouth. I just thought that then. Because that's an example of someone that really did turn around a band's image for the better, and they obviously stuck with it, didn't they? I'm talking about Depeche Mode.
With Depeche Mode,
I know you worked with U2 and all that after that, but probably helped them as well, really visually. But that's the ultimate example for me,
And again, there's this humour. Their stuff on the surface seems very serious, especially when he started really coming through with a kind of strange love around music for the masses.
Yeah.
Which I think was more or less the first time he was working with it.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
There was still the humour in there, because there are a bunch of lads and, they like to muck about, and that comes across.
Yeah.
But there was also this like I say, this kind of more grown up, slightly seedy kind of image going on with them.
I think that's it's probably just because he lets people do be themselves, you know, and they happen to be larking about a lot. So that, I think, you know, but whereas when he does U2, they're more likely to be kind of like just standing around trying to look winsome, aren't they? You know.
Yeah.
Well, that's what makes it work. Yeah, definitely in those videos. I don't know about the recent artwork, the recent album covers though. He's done some of.
Well, they've kind of, some of the ones I kind of I've kind of lost track a little bit, but some of the stuff has kind of got really minimally graphic. Reminds me of some of the earlier OMD stuff, which is fine. And then they seem to go from one extreme to the other way. The other extreme is like it's really hand painted and really kind of but I mean, definitely on the video I just did for you guys, there was an influence there. I mean, literally, you know, I'd got the footage in and I had a rough idea what I wanted to do with it, and there was literally that week there was like one of those mini documentaries about Depeche Mode, you know, about history of their videos.
Yeah.
And I stuck it on. And the first thing that struck me is that because obviously some of those videos were kind of shot, you know, before HD, you know, just on the cusp of HD. And because he was using such grainy stock footage that, you know, they kind of compressed quite weirdly. The grain on it had turned into quite kind of nasty.
It's Super 8, isn't it? A lot of it? Or is it just made to look like that? Yeah, it's actually Super 8,
And it didn't, although it looks great, when you're watching it on a really big HD telly, it looks a bit gnarly. And I thought, well, how could you do it? What would happen if you did that now, but from a HD start? And that's kind of where I went with your footage. Because, you know, it's one of those weird things with like shooting videos in pandemics. You know, you kind of have to work with what you have, but you know, it doesn't mean to say that you can't work with it in your favour. And I think, you know, I pushed the footage harder than I might have done in a conventional shoot.
Right.
You know, knowing that there was going to be certain things that I needed to compensate for with noise and the quality of the footage. It meant I kind of went with that and added the grain and added more noise to it to break it up, and thankfully it paid off. So a little nod to Corbin there. Definitely a visual.
So say if you'd have filmed it on a proper HD camera and all that, you know, obviously, you know, we did it on an iPhone basically. But if we'd have done it all properly, you probably wouldn't have added all those effects? Is that what you mean? Or it wouldn't have looked
probably,
the same?
if I'm honest. I probably might not have gone quite as hard, but maybe it's a good thing that I did go in hard. Maybe, because sometimes it can be a bit like you get a bit precious about stuff.
Yeah.
And I think with this, it kind of allowed me to kind of like, well, let's just throw some stuff at it and see what happens. And it landed nicely.
Yeah.
And you know, we went through a couple of drafts. You saw different versions, and you know, we separating out what was working for the verses and what was working for the chorus. You know, it took a couple of attempts, but in the end, it kind of, you know, it was kind of like I'd swirled up the ingredients and then kind of settled into a nice, you know, kind of form. I don't know if that's the best way to describe making music videos, but that's kind of how it felt. But yeah, no, I'm very happy with it, which is, and as you say, for me, it's a slightly unusual video because I'm predominantly a motion graphics, you know, dare I say, animator at heart. So I mean, you know, music videos when I was growing up, it was always the ones that were based on video art that interested me, rather than kind of like, you know, the Guns N' Roses kind of cliff top, you know, solos. It was the things that were like graphically interesting, that made you, that weren't ashamed of being on the TV and being part of the TV and being made of pixels and being made of light.
Absolutely.
They were more experimental. They're the ones that really appealed to me.
Okay. Ed's asking, Will, would you consult with Pushingnormal on your live shows, stage gear, etc.? And Pushingnormal, would you like to do more of that? I wouldn't consult on my stage gear because I don't even consult myself most of the time. I just grab the first thing that day and I wear it on stage, you know.
Well, I should.
Sorry?
I don't know if Matt's on here today, but the one thing I did do with you guys was when you played that gig in the Bournemouth, the back projection.
Yeah. So
that was great fun. I mean, that was a bit mad. I turned those around. Matt contacted me. Matt was putting on this big show in Bournemouth, and he asked me kind of, you know, I think he just came straight to me and said, would you do some back projections? And that was a really interesting challenge because I was thinking, well, the set's going to be what, like 45 minutes, you know, maybe if I do half hour that loops, but you want stuff. And I've seen this coming back to Depeche Mode. You know, I've seen things where they've basically had the music video as the back projection, and you know, and I've had clients ask me about that. So, if we do a back projection, can we use it as a music video? And if we do a music video, can we use it as a back projection? And I said, no, they're two different art forms. They're two different visual experiences. You know, one would distract from the other. So when he approached me and said, well, could you do some, you know, some backdrops? I thought, yeah, I think I could. And that was a lot of fun doing that. And although they were kind of, I think I had a rough idea of the set order. I can't remember, but it just, you know, on the night, it became something else. We let it go, and it just kind of happened. It was like, there were bits in it where, you know, you would hit a chord, and something would happen behind you. And, you know, during Frantic, the footage that I did based on the album cover was on. I mean, it was mostly accidental, but it just, for me, I was very happy with how that all turned out. So yeah, I mean, I'd love to do that. Still exists. You could still use that. Unfortunately, a lot of it, well, when venues open up again, I know that not every venue has that facility to do back projections, but again, and I think it was quite early days. It was not long after Drenched, so a lot of the artwork was based on Drenched,
right?
With a few kind of, I remember there was one I did where I just filmed the label, because the label for the 10-inch for Drenched has this kind of psychedelic, kind of like the old Vertigo records kind of
like kaleidoscopic thing, isn't it?
Yeah, so I just filmed that for one of the songs. I just think, there you go, just make it out with a ring light. Yeah, so I just filmed that label going round.
Yeah.
For like 4 minutes, and that was one of them. And then I waxed up the colours. Yeah. And then for another one, I had these kind of black net curtains, and it was quite a windy day and quite a bright day. And I just filmed the curtains kind of blowing in the wind, through the sunlight coming through them, and then sort of waxed up the contrast, and it just formed this really nice kind of slightly random, almost watery kind of pattern. And I, added a few graphics over the top. And yeah, I mean, there was a lot of just kind of like, let's just see what happens. And that's really nice, because I can be a bit, especially when you're animating, you can get a bit of a control freak and a bit kind of like, working every pixel, working every frame one at a time. But doing stuff like that every now and again is just so much fun. And it was under pressure, because I had to do, like, say, 30 minutes to 45 minutes worth of footage quite quickly. But it pushes you in a direction that you might not have gone in. And that was a great experience. So in answer to the question, I would love to work on more, projection things, but in a way they already exist. We're already kind of like that.
Well, but then when we do She Made Me Do It, the musical, you have to do all the skirts and all the costumes and everything, So
you say that, you joke about that, but I've actually recently, I can't say much.
Okay.
But I have kind of been working on a musical with somebody else. That's
all right.
Yeah, but funnily enough, that's one of the other weird things about the pandemic. We were talking earlier about how things just kind of all went up in the air and then things kind of settled down and new things came up.
Yeah.
There are several projects that I've worked on during the pandemic that just haven't come out. That, the job's finished, signed off, artwork sent, and I guess those artists, one of those artists and those remixing the album, they've decided, well, I've got time on my hands, I'm going to go back and remix my album. That's an artist who does like ambient experimental stuff.
Right.
And then the other one, which I kind of alluded to, I believe that the emphasis for them is really on the live show. So completely understandably, they've just kind of, I guess, put it on permanent hiatus until they come out. So that could be another year before that sees the light day. But that happens quite a lot, where you do a project and you kind of just move on and you do stuff, and then it kind of out of nowhere it lands, and you're just going, oh my god, is that thing I did like 6 months, a year ago? Yeah. So that can happen. Oh, and the other extreme is like your stuff, where it's right up to the last minute and then bang, and it's out.
Pretty much,
both are but I like that. I think I like that. Feels more pop. You know, it's ephemeral. That's how it should be. It should be of the moment. You know,
I think so. I mean, I know a lot of sort of bigger artists are doing that now. You know, just literally announcing on a Thursday night they're putting an album out tomorrow, and just putting it out. So, and I mean, obviously they're just thinking, well, you know, enough people are going to buy it. You know, there's enough people that follow me on Twitter or whatever. They're going to go out and buy it, so they just do it. But yeah, I don't know why I do it. I just get itchy. I just don't want to sit on things, really. I think.
Yeah, why not?
Well,
I mean, you would like that
to have got she maybe do stuff out a lot earlier, you know. But to do it because I wanted to do the whole promo thing and the whole Spotify playlist palaver that you kind of have to do, especially when there's no gigs. It's been a bit more drawn out, you know. But
these days that digital distribution seems to be setting the template and setting the timeline much more.
Yeah.
You know, what used to be a bolt-on kind of distribution has now become what guides. I mean, we've had previously we've had to do things with artwork and things to bear in mind digital, and just the fact that when you do digital artwork, the proportions change. You know, for example, if you were designing a 12-inch album artwork, some classic albums on 12-inch albums don't look weird as a CD. They kind of look kind of diddy, and then again by extension, if you do digital artwork, certainly in the early days, digital artwork, it just all looked diddy, and then people had to make the text bigger and make it legible. And now there's a kind of trend towards not having any text at all because, you know, Instagram doesn't like stuff with text on it. So it's the driving forces as to what is and isn't, you know, design trends in, you know, the digital distribution, you know, are affecting the way that design is done.
Yeah.
I remember once, the most extreme version is I had a major record label who shall remain nameless came to me and said, we want a lyric video, and it was an artist I worked with before. And I'm like, yeah, great, okay.
Yeah. And
I said, what, any special instructions? And they said, it's got to be Millennium Pink. Right. And I was like, what? I googled Millennium Pink, and I'm like, okay, it's a very particular. It was a shade of pink.
Oh, it is an actual shade, right? Okay.
It was a shade of pink that was very on trend at that point.
Oh, okay.
And that was really the only. So I did this lyric video with the lyrics. It was Millennium Pink, and it went out, and it was seen, and they followed that up with another proper video. But yeah, I mean, that was kind of strange, quite a fast turnaround job. I wasn't going to turn it down, but. Yeah. That was a strange brief, and that really gave me a real indication of how much, because that colour was trending online. That was the driving force.
Oh yeah.
That was their thinking of if we do a lyric video, we'll do it in a fashionable colour. And I thought, if it's got that kind of precise, you know, it's beyond hashtags now. It's more conceptual.
Yeah.
So yeah, it as it happens, I can see why, from a technical point of view, I could see why that was happening.
Yeah.
Because that particular shade of pink compressed well. There are certain colours when you're doing video that compress better than others. Red is a real problematic colour.
Yeah.
So pink, for some reason, has a better kind of compression rate. It doesn't look as crunchy, doesn't look as squarey, you know.
Right.
By similar extension, it's like everyone believes now that lighting in the 80s was pink. It wasn't. It was red. If you watch a Scorsese film, the lighting is red and blue, but they compress horribly. So everyone now thinks that the 80s was cyan and pink because they compress better. So yeah.
I see. So is there what if someone came and said they wanted a specific colour for something? I mean, are there any colours that you would kind of almost refuse to not work with? You know, I mean, there must be something. No. Okay.
No, I went down a bit of a rabbit hole. I've never refused anyone, but there are times where you kind of feel yourself going down.
Not refused. I mean, like, you might have to dissuade them, you know, by giving other options or something, you know.
Oh well, I mean, I think even with you guys, I've sometimes, you know, you come to me with an idea, and I've gone, well, what if we went this way with it, you know?
Well, the whole concept of that last one, I had some stupid idea. And you completely dissuaded me from that, and I'm really glad you did, because I was really pleased with it.
I can't even remember what it was now. But you know, again,
okay. I'm not even going to say.
Well, but again, it's one of those things where it was pandemic video. You know, you kind of just have to go with what you can do.
Oh yeah, no, I'm just talking about the artwork for the massive cult following album.
Oh, sorry, yes, yes. Yeah, yeah.
I don't know where that came from, but
well, even some of the ideas I had, that was a very fast turnaround job. I remember that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm very happy with how it turned out. But it was, I mean, that was one of those things where we really had to kind of think on our feet. And I had kind of other big ideas about doing stuff that's much more kind of, remember, the back was going to be a lot more ambitious.
Yeah.
And then it kind of like, no, the minimal, again, it's just online, the minimal stuff just works better. So it just kind of, but I'm very happy with how that turned out. I remember you sent me one of my own older illustrations as a reference, and then we took it from there. So if you go through my old pictures, you can probably recognize the picture.
I'm so happy with that because there were so many variations of the colours as well, because you were sending through all these variations. And normally, when I have all those sort of choices, I go with one. And the next day, I'm like, oh no, that looks slightly better. But that choice just like it really was a definite thing, and I'm so glad. It just those colours look amazing on that. Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, it's mint is not like a colour I would normally go for, but for some reason, and I'm quite bad for that because especially because I usually start working in black and white. I like high contrast stuff. Like I said, you can see it all throughout the stuff I do for you in recent times.
Yeah.
But I'm quite, and this happened with Scorched. I just do all the colours, all the versions, and sometimes it's very hard to step back from that and go, yeah, okay, no, we need to rein it in. And we went with black and white on Scorched, and I'm glad we did. You made the right decision on that one. And it's good to have the colours in reserve because I remember with things like Fun and Games, we did different colour variations for
the remix, right?
Yeah, for the remixes and things, and that works as well. So, but yeah, I mean, that's one of the great things about working with you, Will, is because I can't, the pack. Let's bring it kind of round to the packaging, the recent one.
Yeah.
Because I can't take complete credit for that. Because if you come to me and you say, we want a tin or we want a magnet, and I'm like, a magnet? Who does magnets? But then my job is to then go, well, what's the best magnet I can make? What we've given that brief, how do I make a magnet cool?
How do you make it attractive?
Yeah, and, so... Yeah. I mean, you were showing it earlier, but it's great. I mean, it's a perfect example of ephemera. It looks like one of those kind of big kind of T-Rex badges from the 70s, but it really just is a nice thing. And that's just not me sort of blowing my trumpet. It's in a digital world, it's just these things still matter.
Yeah.
They still feel a strong. Strong thing.
No, and there's been loads of feedback about, oh, I'm so glad you're doing something different. I'm glad you're doing a physical thing and you're doing this extra stuff, And I kind of wish we'd made more of the notebooks now because we haven't even got one. Well, we haven't even got one now. We just sold them all.
That's absolutely crazy. The notebooks. Yeah. Because again, that was another one where you said, "Oh, we're going to do a notebook," and I'm like, "Okay, you're just looking at things with metallic finish now. This is just getting out of hand." And again, that was, I think, within 24 hours, you kind of said, we want notebooks. I'm like, okay, we'll do notebooks. And so,
yeah. And,
but again, it's such a nice thing. It's just that, like I say, in a digital world, it's just these ephemeral things, some have a permanence to them. That you just, like I say, you want a notebook, you make it the best notebook you can make it in the context of the band's brand. So, I mean, crazy.
Absolutely. Really cool stuff.
And the old tin, of course. This is the funny thing about the tin, and I remember saying this at the time, is that I don't know how this is coming out on camera, but it was almost impossible to photograph it when I was doing the product photographs. It's because in some photographs, and even when we were ordering them, in some photographs, it looked like really silver, like the sort of silver it would cut you if you tried touching it.
Yeah.
And at other times, it would look kind of like, it just looks like a blank CD. But it's in the tin, with the tin, and all the metals working together. It just feels like a proper. It feels complete. It feels like a proper thing, So absolute pleasure to work on that. love more of that.
Yeah, maybe we'll do another tin for the next one. Or maybe
But I mean, I've had so much fun with stuff you've done. I mean, actually, held to the back. You don't see the backs of these things very often. I really like the back of this. Kind of. I mean, I know I've been doing curved text with you guys for a while. Oh, I'm creeping on the camera now. But this reminded me of something. There's a picture. I have a picture of it somewhere, which is a guy I used to work with had this kind of like it was like a slide rule, but it was a circular slide rule. So like, you twisted it to get, and it was a Ministry of Defense slide rule for calculating death tolls from nuclear blasts. And you put in the distance and the megatonnage, and it kind of like gave you like how many buildings, how many people, and this thing just, even though it was just a plastic and paper slide rule, I called it the slide rule of death. I was fascinated by it. And as an object, because you look at it, and it was just one of those things where it just looked really complicated and, lots of numbers and text. Wow, it just looks really like you can just play with it. And the image of that is always stuck in my head. So there's a little bit of that in this, tying in with the whole end of the world thing. Which is
we should do some slide rules for the next limited.
Why not? Let's go the whole stationery cupboard. We'll do protractors and compasses.
Yeah.
All sorts. Yeah. Little pencil cases. Brilliant. Love it.
Yeah. Stationery is a good idea.
I always wondered with the Frantic Legion, whether, because the lyric book was kind of tucked away with this, and that was another thing where it was like a simple idea where it kind of went a bit bad.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing.
When we were doing the lyric book for that, and just flippantly kind of saying, "Oh, well, why don't we do the lyrics as a comic?"
Yeah.
And it's just turning into this like thing where it's just these 12 different pieces of artwork, which of course has the now infamous zombie Lance.
Yeah.
I had to get Lance in. Lance is in everything. It then went on to be the T-shirt, which did really well. So yeah, I mean, there's so much stuff hidden away, and that's dream. If you're going to go physical, do it properly. Just don't put it in a cardboard sleeve. Do it properly.
That's why you're so brilliant, because you always do it properly, And that's, a lot of the time I will skimp, because you've seen me in my stupid designs and videos I put out all the time, just to sort of advertise, the fact that I'm going to the post office or something, and that's one way of doing it. But I need someone that has your vision and your expertise, at the end of the day. So I'm extremely grateful for that. Yeah,
it's it's a weird one, because it's like punk took a lot of stuff from the past and then reused it and restyled it. So when people make their own videos out of old clips and things, I'm thinking, well, I couldn't do that because someone would end up suing me. You're always worried about
Yeah.
But I have no problem with people kind of doing.
I don't give a flying.
Right, and why not? It's a digital age. I mean, so similarly to what I was saying, if you put out a physical product, so I'd like to think that if people do come to me for a video, they get something that does stand out against that does, I mean, those things are great and they do the job. But I'd like to think that when you come to someone like myself, that there's a difference, a tangible difference. Not saying one's good and one's bad. It's like listening to a very distorted guitar, listening to an acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
It's kind of different.
Yeah.
But no, some of your stuff does make me laugh. But it's good. It's like Spot the Film. It's like, I remember seeing that, and I know where that's from.
I don't know what they are. I'm just sticking them on.
Well, it's like sampling. I did a whole when I was at college. Sampling was kind of like a peak. And it's hard. It's ripping off other people's music, and then I took some time just kind of like to step back and really. I ended up writing, and I'm really going to sound like a student now. I wrote a thesis on sampling, and it really changed my mind about it. It really. I thought, no, I get this now. There's always been this cultural thing about appropriating the past, to make something new or to contextualize or juxtapose it. And so, why not?
It's just like playing another note, but it might be a note that lasts for like 2 bars or something. To me, that's why. When it did become more, when the record companies really started closing in on it, and everyone had to kind of put all the credits for everyone they sampled everywhere and give them all the money. It just got a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a shame really, because it was a really good form of expression. I think that's kind of dead now, unless you just put stuff on Bandcamp or something. Or
well, the funny thing is, probably a lot of artists made more money out of that than they did out of
that's true.
What they're getting as a digital revenue.
Oh yeah, I mean, obviously James Brown probably made it. Do you know what I mean? At the time. So,
well, yeah, respect you and all that.
Yeah.
So yeah. The other one I want to mention of the things that I worked with, I really liked, and again, this was your idea, and I was like, what are we going to do with that? And I'm not sure if it really came across online, was for the Drill.
Oh, yeah.
The Obi Band, which, was your idea. And I'm like, an Obi Band? So we're going to, and, for people who were not familiar with them, they were kind of like, you used to buy an imported 12-inch or remix, especially if it was from Japan. They would have these strips around them that would have a translation of, the credits or whatever. And, you could slide them on and off.
Yeah.
And so Will wanted an Obi Band. And I'd never actually seen an Obi Band on well, actually, that's a lie. I had seen on CD, but I was in Japan. I'd seen them there. But I hadn't seen one for a very long time.
Were they actually bands on the CDs? I think they were just kind of wrap-around bits of card, weren't they, on the Japanese CDs? I think it was only on the vinyl they had, like, it's getting really geeky now, but
the ones, I'm trying to think, I might have a couple of Japanese CDs around this time, but they were like paper. So what would happen is that the CD would be shrink-wrapped at the manufacturing plant, and then the paper would be wrapped around it very often.
If it was like a replica of a vinyl, I guess. I can't believe I said a vinyl. I've never said that before. A replica of a record, I mean. It would be. It would more likely be one of those proper Obi strips, I guess. Yeah. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure. No, I'm sure when I was in Japan, I'm pretty sure I saw some there. But that was the only place I was seeing them, was in Japan. So the first thing when you said about the Obi strip is I wanted to make it look. And you already had a whole anime thing going on with a lot of your stuff anyway.
Yeah.
So I definitely wanted to sort of incorporate it in that. So, and I thought, well, it's just so nice. And again, slide rule of death. To actually use it as like a toy.
Yeah.
As a reveal. And, so when we put the tooth on the back, to have it slide up and reveal, but also serving the purpose of knocking it back a bit. So it wasn't just kind of like, kind of too over the top. It also is that nice thing where it's kind of like, just knocks it back a little bit so that the nastiness is just like a reveal. And then, of course, I did because I'd already kind of gone the cyborg route with your artwork on the cover.
Yeah.
Just pushing that even further with the kind of cutaway slide over, which, and the colours, I'm really pleased with the colours on this, especially. Like I said, colours sometimes with me, kind of trouble me. But this, because it's come out just right. I wanted to look, like I mean, you've worked, I think, with Sputnik in some form or another.
Yeah.
And there was definitely, for me, as a teenager, seeing the Sputnik Flaunt It album, and also, I believe, all the F111 12 inches had Obi bands on them.
They did, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So there was definitely like a nod to that, not a lift, but there was definitely kind of like, yeah, let's I can make this work. So it's like a combination of the toy from Flaunt It and the Obi bands from F111.
Speaking of
also
samples, speaking of people getting in trouble for samples, these explain.
Wow, yeah. I mean, that's funny when I still watch those films, and every now and again, when you watch a class, especially in the pandemic, when you watch a classic film, and then there'll be a line will come up and go, "Oh God, yeah, Sputnik." I remember that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool when that happens. But I remember when the album came out, they'd re-recorded all the bits from Blade Runner and Terminator. They just got some actors in to do it. So that I think it was actually around then, literally between their first single and their album in 1986, that they started clamping down on all the samples. So they kind of straddled both sides of it.
That rings a bell. Yeah. So again. And again, we've got this whole thing. I think we're running out of colours now with the vinyl style CDs, which is just such a nice thing.
That's it. I'm just gonna split up, because if I can't do any more colours,
I think the only one we haven't done is gold. I keep running out of it, so we'll just have to keep an eye out for that one. But the green one was really nice.
Yeah.
On the last album.
Yeah.
Because the colours on the cover, well, I wouldn't call them pastel, but they're kind of like slightly shifted, so they're kind of slightly more 80s looking colours.
Yeah.
But then it's an absolutely lurid green.
Yeah.
On the CD,
just like
it clashes in a lovely way with it. It looks that actually, of the ones I've seen so far, it's the one that looks like, you know, like reminds me of a single, you know, a 7-inch color vinyl single. I mean, all great.
When colors clash like that, but they work, is there kind of like a sort of physics aspect to that? Is there kind of like something that, I don't know, why do certain colors clash but still work? Is there like a tried and tested sort of theory?
I mean, there's loads of color theory, you know, and
or is it just in the eye of the beholder, really? That it's just a question of taste, you know, or is it
kind of like one of those? Is it a blue dress or a white dress?
Because obviously there's certain colours that go together, you know. But I'm just wondering if there's like colours that where there's a reason why they're completely mismatched, but they work, you know.
Well, I like maths. I like the mathematics of, you know, part of the animation things, and when I'm working, you know, and I do find it fascinating when you're playing around with a colour wheel. You know, there are certain basic rules that you know that if you go at certain degrees around the colour wheel, that the colours are going to match in a particular way.
Yeah.
But you also, you know that if you play with those numbers, you should get some really gnarly clashes. So, because the digital realm kind of breaks colours down into just numbers, you kind of know that, you know, well, that's an ugly number or it's a prime number, and it's kind of like, you know that some numbers shouldn't work together, and that can push you in interesting directions. But again, if you're stuck, you know that, well, if I push this 90 degrees around the color wheel, I know I'm going to get a color that's going to complement it. But, you know, you don't necessarily want stuff to complement. Sometimes that can be a bit vanilla, a bit, you know, sometimes you want it deliberately. And also, you know, I play around with colors. What I was talking about, compression. Sometimes you have to push colors, you know, very basic colors like pure reds and pure blues, as I say, and yellows. They can cause problems in digital distribution. They can compress horribly. So playing with offset colors can work to your advantage.
Okay.
Then, of course, you get into print, which is a whole different ballgame, which is a bit of a dying art, you know. But when you're working with 4 colors, CYMK instead of RGB, red, green, blue.
I suppose it depends on the design, really, as well. It's all kind of subjective to that, because if you want something to stand out, it's going to have to be completely juxtaposed to everything else, isn't it?
So you want it to pop, so you want it to clash in just the right way.
Yeah, right. Never thought about this before. Very interesting.
I'm just making this up as I go along. Well, sometimes.
Well, but I mean, a lot of it probably. I know you say that, but to put things into words is like quite. You know, I'm sure you don't often have to do that. You don't often have to explain that. You just literally do it and give it to someone, and they look at it from their perspective, and then you describe what you were trying to do, I suppose. And that's all you have to do, really. You don't have to say why you did it, really, a lot of the time.
Yeah. Really. Well, sometimes, yeah, exactly. I mean, if it feels right and it looks right, you know, then it's probably right. You can kind of... The maths thing, usually, if you get into a hole or somewhere, then it's usually a good safety net to go down. But again, it's just striking that balance between kind of method, madness, like I was saying, where we're doing those back projections, some of them are just crazy, kind of spontaneous things, and other things were just kind of like, well, you know, even with the last video, there was a combination of balancing the chaos. So I knew something had to stabilize the video to keep it going, and so doing those rings animated on the beat, like smack on the beat, I knew would give it pace, because it is quite a low-key verse. So I knew I had to give it pace somehow, especially as we're using quite long shots. And so that's a perfect example where you got all that kind of grain and chaos and like slightly indistinct imagery against those hard edges of the line. So I mean, that's as good an example as anyway, just striking that balance between the two. You know?
Ed's saying, how about something exclusive for us Saturday probers? We'll pay for it. What do you mean? Oh, what, like an exclusive design poster or something, maybe? I don't know.
Well, funny, I did.
Weird, because we were talking about Matt earlier, and Matt was saying that this design would look great as a chrome print. You know, like a really, I guess like the magnet, but like an actual, maybe 12 inches big or something. You know, so maybe that.
I'd like to see it. I'd like to see it as a T-shirt. I think. Do you remember in the '90s there was a whole thing with T-shirts having like a kind of metallic print, like gold and silver prints. I'd love to see it as like a round circle slap bang in the middle of a T-shirt. You know, I think that would be really nice in a metal print, like a little throwback thing.
Yeah, it's just weird with T-shirts at the moment because it's such a sort of geek merch thing, isn't it? It's like, it's kind of hard. I mean, I've been trying to sell T-shirts all year. Thanks to everyone who has bought one, but you know, I've still got quite a load in my bag, and there's no way. At least when that happens, normally, you know, under normal circumstances, you can say, well, I've got a gig next week. Well, hopefully I'll get rid of them there, you know. But it's kind of weird with T-shirts at the moment. I
mean, I dug out the box, which is this big box that I keep all the T-shirts in, and obviously I've done loads for you guys because, you know, I've done T-shirts for yourself and for She Maybe Do It, and even for Rachel Stamp, that have got nothing to do with any release artwork. That are just standalone T-shirts. And they do really well. I mean, the ones. I mean, I know, you know, Rachel Stamp has got, you know, a very loyal fan base, but they were crazy. You know how they went, as I understand it. You know, and was it that somebody, Donna, I think was her name, actually went and got the Valentine's heart tattooed after the gig. Yeah, I think her name was Donna, and that was just like, well, I mean, I know that's more down to the fact that she's a fan of the band, but it's still, that's just kind of like,
no, but that's
you know, that's
to that
crazy.
Design, definitely, you know.
So yeah, I mean, I dug all those out, but funny enough, it ties into something I was going to say about, you know, exclusives and so on. About a year or so ago, I was working with a band called Rome Burns, and they were doing a Kickstarter, which I think, if you're in a band, I think this was a really good idea. You know, because basically everyone's paying in advance, you know, so the people have got a more realistic idea of the budget. It feels like less of a risk, so they feel they can kind of push the boat out a bit. But, you know, I also want to feel that anybody who, you know, got something from the Kickstarter really felt like they were getting something exclusive. But there was that sensation at the end of it. Because we really did a number. I probably spent longer working out how to reproduce the album artwork as a T-shirt than I did doing the album artwork. Because the album artwork was red and black and white and lots of saturated tones and kind of cloud effects and shading. But we wanted the T-shirt to be old school screen print, black and white. So trying to work that out was really quite mad, and I ended up doing this kind of, you know, I had to go through like 3 different processes to get it, because you're fighting from pixels and then you're going to a screen print, which is more like a kind of diagonal thing. So, you know, you couldn't just say, I want a dot there and I want a dot there. It was much more complicated than that. You had to kind of go with the physicality of the ink. And, you know, it came out, I'm going to grab it in a second. But the thing was that when it was done, the feedback was just like, well, where can I get that T-shirt? And I'm like, well, you didn't join the Kickstarter. It's exclusive to the Kickstarter. But it's a great T-shirt. But the way I look at it is, it's much better to sell out of something, you know, and think, oh, maybe we should have had more done, than I've seen other artists where they've just been a bit optimistic, and, you know, it's very easily done. You know, the manufacturer will say, well, if you get, you know, you're getting 200 done, but if you get 500 done, the unit price is cheaper. And I said, well, just be sure that you can sell, you know, X amount, because you can always get more done later, because even if you paid more for the manufacturing in the long term, as long as you made that money back, what difference does it make? So that risk of, you know, spending, you know, I've seen bands do it, and it's a shame when it happens that they're going to get carried away and overspend. No, just sell out. That's what you want to do. Sell out, keep it limited, keep it exclusive, you know, but also reward the fans and make sure that when they do get something that's exclusive, that it's a really nice thing. I'm going to grab that T-shirt, actually. Hang on a sec.
Well, that's what happened with the Rachel Stamp. Both those T-shirts just sold out, and we only did like one-off gigs for both of those.
So I had to set the headphones out for a second to do that.
Right. I'm just babbling on.
I mean, funnily enough, they did the metal thing as well, which is tiny, which is kind of enamel badges. This was another metal thing I did. I think I sent you a picture of one of these, which is, I don't know if that's going to come out. I redesigned their logo.
Yeah, yeah.
And we did these like little pin badges that came out really nicely. So the artwork for the album. I'm sorry about talking up bands, but there we go. It was like that, back to front, of course. But it's quite kind of red, black, and white. But I didn't want to do a digital print. I wanted to do a screen print. So we did it as this screen print. But it's like to get that kind of speckled effect.
Yeah.
So that all the shading that was on the artwork turned out into a speckled effect. It took me ages, and the files were colossal. We were talking like 1200 DPI, which, if you're not familiar with DPI, it's like the quality of the image. Normally, if you're printing, you're working at about 300.
Yeah.
About 300, 600 if you want to go mad. And this was like 1200 DPI at a 12-inch size. It was crazy files, but
I don't
totally
think my
worth
software would cope with that. I think it would just crash.
It did struggle because I was working with layers as well, because I was trying to make some of the areas more grainy than others. So I had all these layers going on. So it was a massive, massive file. But worth it, because at the end of the day, everyone was like, Jeff, why are you getting so carried away with this? And there's always to and fro with these screen printers. But then the screen printers kind of clicked with what I was trying to do. And they're like, no, we get this.
Right.
And they were really helpful. And it was worth it. It was totally worth it in the end to see the end product. But, again, I'm such a big fan of screen prints.
Yeah.
Much more than digital. I mean, I can understand. I mean, I sell digital stuff myself, but the screen print stuff, like that last one for Rachel Stamp, just went nuts.
Yeah.
That went out so really quickly. I loved working on those.
So a few shopping bags left though. A few totes.
Yeah, the totes.
If anyone
I
wants
love a tote.
We got them with that design.
I've got a Lance tote here.
Oh yeah. Oh no, we sold out of them. People love those
In the archive.
The Lance ones, yeah.
I've got a lot of mileage out of that Lance Fisher. He's done you well, that cat. He's earning his keep. Cats don't tend to earn their keep. He's doing you all right.
Yes, yeah.
And here's the I think you have some of these, don't you? The She Maybe Do It ones with a neutral design. So although they came out when you were promoting Drenched, they were independent kind of designs from it. They weren't from the front, they weren't from the back. They were just done in the early days of that kind of dagger look that we're working with. So and that's nice as well, because that's one of the weird things, because it's not just a logo when you're designing for a band. It has to be beyond that. It has to be, I think I could do stuff for you now and not have your name on it, and people would say, that's a She Maybe Do It track. That's a She Maybe Do It.
Yeah.
And when you read, that's great, because you're visually communicating without words, and I think that's great. And it brings us back to what we're talking about, Peter Saville, where the Joy Division covers and the Nord covers, no text. I remember it used to be a big joke about record labels always insisting on putting stickers on the front.
Yeah.
But if you can put stuff out, and weirdly, that works now, because like I say, if you can do artwork that doesn't have any text on it but still be identified as the band, that does you a massive favour, because that stops, I know they're listening, the social media from kind of suppressing the artwork, because it can identify text and go, well, this must be an advert. It suppresses the posts. I mean, there's so much you have to kind of think about. But if that means I get to do more abstract artwork to fight back, then that's what I can do. I'm more than happy to do that.
It's ironic that iTunes are kind of insisting on having like text on there, not even a logo. It's getting very strict with that.
Yeah,
as we found.
Well,
out.
I wasn't sure about. Yeah, okay, that's interesting. That's very interesting. And there's a perfect example of how what is supposed to be a platform, and what used to be an extra platform, a different or extra way of distributing music, is now setting the goalposts. For people, if anyone was wondering why the She Maybe Do It shard doesn't appear on the front of the artwork. I like the artwork as it is. It's fine. Yeah. But some of the other releases we've done out, and I think this affected, the drill, I think, where one of the rules is, because what they do is, so different distributors will have different rules. So if you're using a service that's distributing to all these different people on your behalf, they kind of take the lowest common denominator.
Yeah.
So if this distributor will allow that and this distributor, doesn't, then we're kind of like, we'll find a middle ground. So we got into a situation where anything that was text that wasn't literally the band name and literally the title of the album had to be removed. And that was, when you think about how many classic, I mean, okay, one extreme to the other. If you think about classic albums that have no text, how many classic albums have got like text all over them, like adverts in the background, or well,
there's that XTC album which is like that, isn't it? It's just got text.
Right. I think is it one of the Susies and the Banshees one is made of like news cuttings, and you kind of feel like, well, what would you do with that? Yeah. So
I think that might have been a problem with Ditto Music looking at it, because I've used a different distributor for that last Scant album and for the last She Made Me Do It stuff, and had no problems at all, so. Good.
Yeah. But I still think, I still couldn't be happy with the artwork for the new EP, and especially that we got to do that thing where the single and the EP, almost like, the same but not the same, where they're two panels almost from a comic strip. That was fun. I mean, just it's nice when you can do little, not gags, but just little things like that tie things together that even if no one ever notices, it's there, and it's like, the in joke. But yeah, no, I remember it got crazy with this one, and we had to take the numbers off, didn't we? Because there's one of the other little games on this is that the tracks correspond to parts of the body.
Yeah.
On the diagram, kind of loosely. I mean, that was kind of an accident. I just kind of started doing that, and then I started thinking, well, hang on a minute, there's one called, was it number 2 here is the insides of the drill, and the track is the drill. I mean, it was kind of like started by accident.
Yeah.
But then I kind of thinking, well, which numbers match which parts of the body and so on. So there's just kind of like, that's quite fun. It kind of all makes sense, even if no one ever notices that stuff.
iTunes steps in and fucks it all up,
Yeah, well, do them.
Got there in the end.
Physical products, screw iTunes.
Yeah, exactly. They're better to get the CD anyway. So, and I've still got a few CDs left, everyone, if everyone wants to.
Well, welcome to the Scant Regard shopping channel.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is like QVC without me having to do anything.
No, but this is great. I mean, I do appreciate you asking me on. It's not often, you can't shut me up now, but it's not often when you kind of get on to talk.
That's what I thought.
Actually, what you're up to.
That's what I thought, but it's cool. It's really interesting, and it's because we just normally we're toing and throwing with like little minutia, aren't we? With little things rather than getting into like discussions about design or like this. So it's cool, very cool. So what are you working? What have you got? Anything you want to sort of talk about that you're doing right now that's going to be coming out soon?
Well, right now I'm working on a track for a record label, kind of like an indie record label. They're kind of like I've worked with them a lot before. If you kind of go through my website and sort of see my videos, you'll see a few kind of R&B based artists that I work with. So I'm working with this label, and I'm doing, it's slightly unusual. It's probably the most traditionally animated video I've done in some time. That was a benchmark. And they came to me and said, we want an animated music video, and they sent me some examples, and I'm like, well, okay, I'm not going to repeat what somebody else has done, but maybe we should take it in a new direction. Did my special twist. So all I can really say about that at the moment is that's due out before the end of the month. The single is coming out on the 19th. I hope to God the video is going to be ready for then.
Yeah.
So look around the end of the month for that one. Watch those timelines. And that, like I say, it's kind of, the only way I could describe it is as kind of like a time travel love story. So it's very different. I mean, one of the things about this pandemic, I mean, I've done album artwork, loads of album artwork, and I say some of the stuff that people haven't even seen yet. But this will be my 8th music video in lockdown. I mean, if I do a couple of videos a year, I'm quite fine. They'll keep me busy.
Yeah.
But doing 8 videos, and the first 2 months were more or less a bust anyway. It's been crazy, but I'm just relieved that the videos are all different. They're all very different artists. I mean, I say 3 of them are for you, but they've been very different tracks. I mean, the cover version that you did, the 3 Imaginary Boys, was a very different challenge, a very different thing, you know, compared to the last one. But they all tie together. So and the challenges, and some have worked better than others. The challenges of making lockdown videos has just really, you know, pushed me, but also, you know, being a real, you know, problem to be solved. But I love problem solving. So,
but I don't think there's anything that I mean, if someone told, like, say we are out of lockdown by 2022, if someone looked at this in 2030 and someone told them it was 2022, they'd say, yeah, it probably was. You know, I don't think anyone would. You know, I don't think there's anything that distinctive about them being specifically lockdown.
I mean, I hope so. I nearly did one lockdown video with a band I was working with, because they were like a 5-piece band and they were all in completely different locations. And they, you know, we were working on a budget, and that was the only time that a conventional lockdown video. But I wanted to do a twist with that as well. That I wanted to, you know, like people holding their phones, you know, running around their bedrooms or whatever. But I wanted to make it quite kind of. We were going to go quite psychedelic with it, but when it kind of didn't happen again, they decided that release, unfortunately, the release was pretty much a victim of the pandemic, and that didn't happen. But something else came up, just got on with that. So, yeah, I mean, some of them have been just straight out animation, a lot of dance stuff. But yeah, that's the hope. That
we did an animation videos. You did one for us completely not in isolation, you know, so there's no rhyme or reason to it, really, is there?
I mean, it's yes. We're looking back at that and looking at Frantic. I mean, that was ambitious. I mean, that was when I look back at that now, that was a crazy. But it was just like, I wonder if. I mean, I'd done a couple of narrative, because you'd seen them, and I think that's part of the reason why it all came up. I'd done 2 kind of narrative animated music videos before. One for a dance track, which I think was more or less the first commercial music video I did, which was I'm not going to bring that up. It's, you know, that's dated. Because I was kind of testing the technology, and it was, you know, it was the early 2000s.
Yeah.
But then the Beat of Valentine one, I'm still very, very proud of the Beat of Valentine video, which was an independent band that I was working with out of Austin in Texas. That was, I was still very proud of that video. That was a superhero one.
Right.
And you'd seen that, I think, or, you know, that had come up when we were chatting about how to do videos. And then yours was the next. And I was kind of thinking, I always look back at videos like that, so I like that one, but how can I do it better? And so when I worked on the old one, that was just kind of a crazy kind of video. I mean, you always have to do a compromise with the drawing when you're doing animation, because, you know, for time, you want to make everything beautiful, but you kind of have to sacrifice. You know, it's like the recent movie of The Killing Joke, the Batman comic. You know, you were never going to reproduce Bolland's artwork on screen. It was always going to have to be simplified to be animated. And it's kind of like that you want to do absolutely beautiful drawings, but at the end of the day, you just need to get on with it. So, I mean, looking back, there are certain things I thought, I might have drawn that differently. But I still really enjoy it. I still think it's a fun video that you can watch from start to finish, and it communicates a story, even if the story is quite mad. So, yeah. And, you know, out of that came the album artwork, which was just taking it to another level again. Like the idea with the album for Frantic Legion was to do a movie poster for the video, but then do it as if it was like a proper Hollywood blockbuster. So yeah, it all just kind of what led on to the other. So
it's all great. It all ties in really well. Very cool. So so
I'm nodding.
Sorry?
No, I was just saying I'm nodding. Like, and I just realised you can't see me nodding. I'm nodding in.
I've been nodding for the last hour at you, and I'm sorry. You can't. I mean, well, you know. I'm showing acknowledgement, you know.
Well, I hope I haven't sort of like bored everyone. Like, say, like, I don't get to talk about what we do very often, so it's so easy to get carried away. But I
can't see how any of that
screen time
construed as boring in any shape or form. And I'm going to post it afterwards, and more people are going to see it. And if anyone wants to check out more Pushing Normal stuff, it's pushingnormal.com, right? It's got loads of examples of Jeff's work there. Including the Scant Regard and the She Made Me Do It stuff, and our videos are on there. I think the She Made Me Do It videos are probably on there.
Yeah, all on there.
You can check it all out, man. So I'll let you get on with resting your weary head, Mr. Pushing Normal.
I'm probably going to go do some rendering.
More weary after this talk. But thanks a lot for joining me.
All right, absolute pleasure, and looking forward to whatever comes next, mate. And really glad to hear that the EP seems to be doing well. It's what you want. You know?
It is, absolutely, yeah. It's all the promo seems to be, well, more people are hearing it than normal, so that's a good thing, I think. Yeah, that's cool. And we've got the live thing. Yeah, I shouldn't forget before I pop off. We've got this live set happening on Wednesday night online on Edge Recording Studio site. I've posted it today, so you'll see that. You can still watch the Scant Regard one I did, which came out last week. You can buy a ticket for whatever price you want and watch that for the whole of March. And yeah, thanks. I think a couple of people just bought the CD while we're on it, so that's brilliant. Thanks a lot for that.
Awesome.
And so we're almost out of the lovely magnets. But I'm keeping mine. I'm not getting rid of that. So yeah, anyway, thanks a lot again, Jeff. And
no problem. Thank you,
I'll
Will.
speak to you soon. Cheers, everyone. And I'll see you next week, y'all.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye.